Hello, welcome to How to Succeed During a Pandemic. Hi, I'm your host, Wendy Lally, and I'm delighted to welcome you today to our show. We have a very interesting program today. It's a very visual program for a radio show, but we also do this show on Facebook on a page called Succeed in a Pandemic. So you can actually see it on video as well as listen to it. And we'll be describing the pieces that we're showing you, the visuals that we're showing you, so your mind's eye will be able to see them. The first thing I'd like to tell you about is why we're doing this show. This show is about artists. We have two fine artists today, Gini, Kondziolka, and Ray Luskin. Now, both of these women are fine artists, have been for many years, but in addition to the fine art they do, and that's painting and mixed media, photography, they also use their talent, their art talent, to make a living. And this is always a difficult challenge for artistic people. How do you use that talent to actually pay your bills? Sometimes you're lucky enough to earn enough from the art that you do, but most of us not so much. So we have to funnel that talent into other ways, and both of these women have done that to the joy and delight of the rest of the world. Gini is known to you already. She's been on at least 2 of our shows, and she did the screens that come on before the show begins and after the show, because she's a graphic artist. She's also a jewelry maker. Gini, welcome. I'm just thrilled that you came back and you're here, and that today we can show people the fine art that you do as well as the other things you do. And Ray Luskin is our other guest. Now, Ray is an award-winning writer, and she writes about creativity. Right, Ray? Have I got that correct?
No, I sort of go the gamut. I have several books I've written. One is called The Creative Activists, Make the World Better, One Person in Action at a Time. I actually interviewed 200 creatives. Now, I'm not saying they're fine artists. Again, creativity is a much broader term. And so I always like to preface that. So it's about what people are doing, personal development plus leadership, and how they're changing the world with their creative thinking, problem solving, and sometimes their art.
Okay, I want to get into that during the program. So, okay. But thank you for introducing that topic, because it's a very good one. And really, it's has to do with the general theme of this show, which is all of us using our innovation, our creativity, our resilience to kind of get through a very difficult time, which has kind of stopped the world cold for many people. And those of us who can kind of draw that creativity out and depend on that and utilize that can get going again. And that's what these two ladies have been doing all of their lives, and certainly practiced that during this challenging period that I refer to as the era of COVID-19. So we're going to get into the discussion right now. Ray, thank you for starting us off.
Okay.
Gini, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself and VHK Design?
Well, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from Northern Illinois University. And because of that, I had to decide on my area of concentration. So it was kind of between printmaking, painting, and visual communication. And my roommate said to me, well, do you want to make a living or not? So visual communication it was. And so because of that, I am a graphic designer, and I've worked for many different clients, some pretty well-known clients like the Chicago Symphony, the Elmhurst Art Museum, and the Chicago History Museum. So in fact, I'm currently working on a big project for them. So, but I also took studio classes, and one of the classes I ended up taking was watercolor with a really wonderful teacher, Wynne Jones. I studied for 3 semesters with him, and I love watercolor because it's very fluid and it's very transparent. Little by little, I sort of graduated to acrylic when I started taking an independent study workshop back in 1991. My teacher was offering it out of his own studio. And so my watercolors started getting dimensional, which is what facilitated my change to acrylic. So now I also do painted paper sculptures, as well as the jewelry that I make and some ornaments and things, masks I made. So that's how it sort of evolved.
And you're going to get a chance to see some of Jenny's work during this program. I wanted to add, by the way, that aside from Jenny doing the credits and the opening slide of this show, she also designed a logo for me because I have my own business called Words and Beyond. I'm a marketing copywriter. And I was just thrilled that Jenny did the logo. The logo actually set the whole tone for my website. So for those of you who think that that kind of thing is just an add-on, it's not. A logo represents the whole personality of your company, and it's a very important element. So that's why you need someone like Ginny to do that for you. And Ray, come on back and tell us
Okay.
about what you do.
Well, there are several elements. I'd say I'm an artist, an author, an activist, a creative mindfulness mentor. And I help people discover the power, their superpowers of creativity. It's taking, because I work in the arena of mindfulness, expression, visioning, and activism. And so I help them become leaders in their homes, in their communities, and at work, because they can tap into that creativity, which we all need to live our lives, whether it's being at home and parenting, or if we're at work, we need to be able to tap into creativity as part of that journey as well, so that we can be competitive in the market, or even just talking to our clients, how do we appreciate them? So there's a lot of levels to what I do. I sort of always said I'm a kaleidoscope. Turn me this way, and I can talk about that. Turn me this way, I can talk about the other area.
And you call your business the Winning Adventure, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you. And the subtitle is Dream Big, Live on Purpose, Be Unstoppable. And my tools are creative expression. And I really love to give people a deep dive into that. But it's fun. It's interactive. And when I talk about creativity, I'm not talking about the fine arts. I'm talking about scribbles and doodles. That is my powerful one-on-one tool that I work with everybody. You can write your name. You will be successful.
I think this is you can't emphasize creativity enough in any profession. And when you think about I don't know, people I think tend to think of creativity as in terms of the arts.
Right.
But there's certainly not anyone more creative than a scientist who's coming up with a vaccine, for example, that is going to hopefully get us all back to our regular lives. And that isn't that kind of work, I don't think happens just from science alone. It's not just adding one and one.
No.
You've got to do something else to get there because you're building something new. So creativity is always involved.
Right. And some of the, Steve Jobs always talked about connecting the dots with creativity, and he always brought in people from different diverse backgrounds because everybody's got a different perspective, and it's really interesting. I had done one program a long time ago for a funeral home, and I asked, what do you do for the kids who have to grieve? And they were like, what? Brought in a different perspective. They never thought about how can I incorporate something that helps not just the adults, but the family grieve. So I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Ray, your approach, first of all, I love the fact that you call your business the Winning Adventure because life is an adventure. And especially so if you use creativity in it. And I think people do without even realizing that they're doing it. They just don't give themselves credit for doing that. But I want to talk about a recent project of Ginny's, which was for the Field Museum, Ginny, was it?
No, the Chicago History Museum.
Oh, the Chicago History Museum, which involved her design skills, but most of all, it involved her creativity in coming up with a game and an activity that people could participate in when they visited the museum. And one of the things, tell us about that, Ginny, because it shows how the museum was using creativity to overcome the social distancing thing that we all have to go through, and yet make this activity, museum going, possible and enjoyable for the people coming. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the game is basically for the school groups that they get. So they probably won't, they're not expecting school groups until this coming fall. But they've been using these carts previous to that because we had designed a series of 6 of them 10 years ago, and they just reevaluated them in 2019. So we started redesigning them last year. And the first one was the fire cart for the Chicago Fire. And the whole premise is it's kind of like Monopoly. It starts the day after the fire ends, and you have to go around the game board and collect food, shelter, and money tokens. There are also chance cards, decision cards, and city proclamations that they have to answer questions for. And that's how you earn food, shelter, or money tokens. And whoever has the most obviously wins at the end of the game. So it was up to me to lay out the game board. It's a tabletop that's 60 by 60, but it has 2 flats that fold down for storage because they couldn't store something that large. So I had to lay out the game board so that nothing crucial went over those 2 seams. So that was the first part I had to work on. Then I had to figure out how many game spaces I could fill the tabletop with.
I love is the fact that the museum was trying to find ways to not just kind of close their doors and say, that's it.
Right.
We'll see you in December, but really working to serve the public and keep going and offer their services through Zoom, if nothing else. So,
Yeah. Well, they're not offering this through Zoom right now, but they were open for a time. And then when the pandemic spiked, they closed down. They just reopened again on March 4th, which happened to be the birthday of the city of Chicago.
how about that? See all the things you learned from this project.
I probably know more about the Chicago Fire than I want to know.
Ray, how did you get started doing what you do?
Well, it's a journey. As Gini started, I was, I had an art school for my sister when I was 5. So I've always been interested in the arts. Throughout my whole life, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts and a Master's in Urban Planning. So that sort of connected me into a deeper level about social consciousness and advocacy and wanting to do other things. And I had an art school for about 10 years called Art and Soul Connection. And what I was learning there was, I realized I was not the person who it was about the process. It wasn't about the final product. It became much more about what are you going through? And so that was the beginning of my first book was Art from My Heart. Can I share a picture?
Please.
So I have several books, and Art from My Heart was released in 2010 after spending 10 years, having this art school where I ended up talking, and I worked with parents, and I am a sexual abuse survivor, from a childhood situation. So I worked with a lot of people who were abused. That's the other piece of this, that my path to learning and using creativity as a healing tool as well as for social change was my own journey. I've been in talk therapy for a million years, and there was a point I wanted to kill myself, and instead I made a decision to get help and to go inside. It was not about the therapist anymore. And one day I actually took out a crayon and a black crayon, and I started scribbling like this. And the rage and the sadness just poured out of me, and it changed my whole life. So that's how I got into Art from My Heart.
So, Gini, how I want you to be part of this conversation too, because I know that you've been painting probably more than you were before, and it just seemed to me, and I've known you 2 or 3 years, that I wasn't really aware of the fact that you did painting, because I thought of you as a graphic designer, and so that's why it seems to me like this has become a more important part of your existence.
I always wanted to be a painter for some reason. I just found it fascinating. I just liked paint. When I was a kid, I used to do art projects with my aunt. We used to she used to buy me paper dolls. And then one day I went down to see her, and she had drawn a paper doll. And then we were designing our own clothes for the paper dolls. And we'd make little ladies out of clay, modeling clay. She took me to the Art Institute. We went a lot of places where I was exposed to art. And when I was in 6th grade, my parents actually sent me to the junior school of the Art Institute. So
Why don't you show us some of your work?
okay. And then this piece, this is a site-specific piece I did for the foyer of my house. So it's made from triple elephant size paper, which is 40 by 60. So all the pieces are cut and shaped out of that. And then again, it's got water acrylic on it, but there are areas with little micro beads that are glued to it in little lines. And so when the light hits something, you can see the micro beads light up because they're reflective. It's the kind that they use in paint, like in police cars. So they light up at night when the light hits them.
What is the inspiration for you to create something like this? I think we should. I just want to try and explain it to people. It's a sort of an abstract shape, but it is. It looks like almost like a flower with petals folded over, and it's just beautiful colors of turquoise and pink and red. It's just lovely. But how do you get an idea to create something like this?
Well, since this was site specific for my foyer, so there's an entrance, the main entrance to the house. There's stairs going up to the second floor. There's a hallway going into the dining room, and then an entrance to the living room. So it's kind of like many entrances and ways to get through the house all coming together. So I was trying to come with, like, you know how a compass has all those multi directions emanating from the center. So that's what I was working towards. And this took about 6 months to complete.
Wow.
Just the painting part, not the assembly.
Did you sketch it out before you did this? I mean,
I did. I had a sketch that I colored in. I did with pencil and did the shading, and I figured out the layers. So then in order to actually get the layers to...
Yeah.
Ginny, I wanted to ask you too, did you exhibit in galleries? Are you showing your work, or did you show your work before COVID, and then what's going on afterwards?
I have shown my work a few times, different places, offhand. I was part of a co-op gallery many years ago. We would rent a space in the River North area and put up a show during the opening night of the gallery season. And we did that for a few years. It was okay. It was nice. We had a lot of turnout, and we had a big turnout with people. But then the group started kind of falling apart. You know, something like that doesn't last because it's a lot of energy to put something like that together. But I've been in galleries. I've shown at the Illinois Artisan Shop when it was in the Thompson Center. That program has been discontinued, but I've shown there.
Because I know that there have been some shows. The artist that I interviewed for one of the past shows, as she said, she has a gallery owner who's a lawyer, and he actually turns his office into a gallery. Uh-huh. So they were able to have 10 people at a time, and then they made other people wait and kind of did 10 out, 10 in.
Yeah.
But it was very successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what they're doing. I don't know whether they're continuing that. I hopefully once everyone's been vaccinated, there won't be a need for 10 in, 10 out. Everybody will be able to get in at the same time.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah. This has been a hard time on any kind of gathering. And I think you need a certain amount of interaction with other people to prompt mm-hmm. creativity and collaboration and sharing.
Right. Well, that's one of the things we've been doing with Artversations. Ginny and I and a few other people. I actually started it. I was taking, every year I try and take something new. So, I took this encaustic class with the North Shore Art League. And so I met these women, and then COVID hit. And the teacher said, I'm going to start this conversation at the same time since we can't meet. And then she dropped out, and then I took it over. And now we're trying to grow this, together, coming up with, our statement. And we want to create a virtual art show, a platform for artists to talk about their work. And so, Ginny and I have been collaborating on that and coming up with some great ideas. And, we'll have a Facebook group, and she's doing the logo. And I said I'd host the Facebook group and I do the interviews. And, again, it's another way, it's a platform for people, even if you don't sell anything, to talk about who you are, why you do what you do, and the meaning behind your work, because you never know. It may not be that person who watched it, but they'll say, hey, I saw something interesting and she did this, or it might spark something in somebody else. So I think it's, that we're trying to take that opportunity right now to do that and create a bigger group and just make it an open art conversation. Because sometimes we actually show work and we've helped each other, and I've learned about different techniques, or they've learned about things I'm doing. And so it doesn't even have to be we show our work that day. It can be just we're talking about, our lives, because sometimes we just need like-minded people to communicate with.
Well, what I love about going to a gallery opening and hearing what the artist has done and how they've done it is it gives you a whole other perspective of the painting or whatever it is you're looking at, the sculpture. And when they, like what I just asked you about, what prompted your creation of that, by the way, what is that called, that beautiful flower you did for your hallway? Is it have a title?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it doesn't have a title.
Beautiful thing I did for my hallway. But anyway.
Yeah, I usually title my paintings, but that one doesn't have a title.
Well, what I loved about that discussion was that you said that the space inspired the design.
Mm-hmm.
That never would have occurred to me. I mean, I wouldn't have any way of knowing that except for that conversation. And that's the kind of thing that you get when you go to a gallery opening and the artist is walking you through and telling you about their paintings.
But that's what you're also giving people right now, Wendy, is that feeling of you as if you were walking in an art gallery and talking to the artist. Mm-hmm. And that's what's the gift you're giving all of us right now.
Well, I haven't done that many times, but I did go to an opening of a, this is a strange story, really. I met a painter on a train coming into Chicago. She was from Wisconsin, and I was coming back from a job interview in Wisconsin. And we sat down together, and it turned out she was bringing her paintings because she was going to try and hit the galleries to see if she could get a into one of the Chicago galleries. So I'm talking to her, and I don't know where this came from, but I told her that what I would do is I'd go into the gallery, and instead of just, I would show them my paintings, and then I would ask them what they would suggest, who I should talk to, who would they suggest I talk to about getting a show in this area, which is, Wells Street in Chicago is where all the galleries are. Instead of trying to sell them something, ask their advice and their help. Mm-hmm. And it worked. She got into a gallery show, and she sent me an invitation, and I went to it. And that was the first time I had been in this situation of someone walking around the room telling about the paintings. And one of the paintings, she said, she had made a huge mistake in the corner of the painting. So she scrubbed it out, and then she repainted it. But the scrubbed out it was kind of like what you were talking about, Ginny, where you take water and you kind of wash it out. And mm-hmm. So the effect was stunning. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. And it was basically a mistake. So, mm-hmm. A corrected mistake. Well, that's the kind of thing you don't know unless someone makes a point of telling you that. And it does make it more interesting.
See, but that's part of being an artist. I mean, you learn to fix your mistakes or live with them. And sometimes it just happens, I mean, I've dripped paint where I shouldn't have dripped paint, but you learn how to deal with it or adapt.
Art gives you great problem solving skills. And I think that's what the schools don't recognize when they cut out the art so quickly. Mm. This gives you a vocabulary, a different way of expressing yourself, connecting with other people, and how to problem solve. And we all need that. It's just, part of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's especially valuable if you're an artist and you can problem solve like that.
Yeah.
Ray, that is so wise, what you just said. Because if you think of what we're all going through now with COVID and trying to reshape our lives, and there are so many people that have been psychologically damaged by this time.
Right.
because they haven't been able to do that. And trying to find how do I make this life fit what I used to have, and I can't do it. And I can't go on because the tension and the stress is simply too great. I mean, you have the therapists are having an incredible time
Right.
treating people today.
And they're worried about burnout themselves. How do they handle all the mental illness that is
Right.
propping up the anxiety, the stress, so it is challenging. Yeah.
But
That's why
learning how to channel your energy in different ways, learning how, like Ginny says, to you have a mistake, so you learn how to fix it.
Well,
That's a tremendous lesson.
Well, and I think, creativity too is writing, journaling. When and the studies have shown people who journal are happier and healthier, so you write about whatever is going on, you address it and you let it go, or you scribble it out and doodle, or you throw paint or scream and yell and pound the drums, I've done that, a lot of drumming this year, things like that. And it is a different kind of outlet, but the health benefits are huge, out there doing amazing things.
Well, you have all been inspiring to me, and we're going to have to say goodbye now because...
Can I show my artwork?
Oh, yes, please. Well, you showed us your books. I thought that was it. So,
no.
Yes. Okay.
All right, hold on. This is the artwork. This piece is... I did this right before COVID hit. And as you can see, I always love to do figurative pieces. They're women, usually their faces, and you can see I have a definite connection to nature. My happy place is going to the Botanic Gardens, so I'm always inspired. I don't necessarily, like Ginny, I never plan it out. I there are days I'll just start with a scribble and doodle and see where it goes.
Okay, let's just describe this for...
okay, this is a woman. She's got long hair, and in her hair are patterns and colors. Everything I do is very, very colorful. It's got blues and pinks and purples. And the embellishment, she's got a beautiful butterfly that is actual embellishment. So it's got beaded. So I've got some jewels on her, some crystals on her head. And then as you go down, you see this long neck. And then I use the words lifelong friends. And on her torso is it looks like a stem of a tree. And then there's a bird sitting on a branch. And then behind her is another tree with an owl in it. And the owl is an embellishment. It is not something I painted. So I try and combine these, a lot of pattern in my work. And I think that's why I was also drawn to Untangle this year. It just takes my patterning to another level. So it's everything about color for me. Okay. And I want to bring joy, inspiration, and hope to people. That's all my work is about.
And again, if you can tune into the Facebook on Succeed in a Pandemic, you can see these visuals because they're worth seeing. This is lovely. Okay, well, we're going to have to close up shop now, and I just want to thank you, both of you ladies, for coming. This has been a very enlightening, very creative program, and I hope all of you have enjoyed it as well. Please stop back next week on 216thenet.com and also onto our Facebook page, which this week is probably even more important than ever because it was a very visual show. And that page is Succeed in a Pandemic. And you can see all these beautiful paintings, and they are beautiful. You really should stop by and see them. And please share the show if you have friends that are interested in art and like it, I hope, as well. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you again for coming. Thank you, guests. And for a little while longer, stay in and stay well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.